Hello, everyone. So, if you are a business owner and you have received a Paycheck Protection Program loan or a PPP loan, you must listen to this video. There are so many things that I'm going to cover about when to apply for the forgiveness, who should apply for the forgiveness, who should wait, what if you have sold your part of your business. At the same time, what is going to be the tax impact of the PPP loan amount that is going to be forgiven. So stay tuned. I'll try to make sure this video is a little bit shorter, but the questions that I'm going to cover, I think it may run longer. So get a cup of coffee and listen to it with proper attention. And maybe take a pen and paper and write down some notes as well. So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Minnal Babaria. I'm a CPA, certified tax code, certified tax planner, and I own a full service professional public accounting firm in Central Valley, Pennsylvania, but we serve clients throughout the United States. Now, let's dive in deeper. When should you apply for the forgiveness? I would say if you have received the PPP loan of a larger amount and you expect that whole loan to be forgiven, wait to apply for the forgiveness. Apply it in 2021, don't apply it in 2020. Or maybe apply last couple weeks of 2020 or, towards the end of the month of December. Here's why. Because the right now, the way IRS has laid out per notice 2020-32, what the IRS is saying that the forgiven amounts are not income, not a taxable income, but you have to reduce your tax deductible expenses. So, by the amount by which your loan is forgiven, you have to reduce your tax deductible expenses. And if your tax deductible expenses for 2020 are reduced by a huge amount, with less than 2 months remaining, you don't have enough of time to to do more of a tax planning, right? You don't want to pay high taxes on that amount, especially in the year when you're suffering. So I would say defer it up to 2021, because if your PPP loan is forgiven in 2021, you have to reduce your expenses in 2021, and you will have enough of time in 2021 to plan out, have to reduce your tax liability. So that's my number one reason. Number two, in the same notice, the where the IRS is saying that your taxable income will not be increased, but your tax deduction will be decreased by that same amount. What the IRS is saying that you must reduce your expenses in the year in which you met the forgiveness requirement, irrespective of the fact whether SBA approves your forgiveness or not. So that is kind of contradictory, because I'm like, I don't know. I mean, if the SBA will approve your full forgiveness for one or the other reason, if SBA makes a decision to approve part of the forgiveness, there are a lot of variables. And without having a final decision from the SBA, you can't reduce your tax deductible expenses. So again, that's my point of view. And I hope we get more clarification on this. So that is my another reason. When you don't have a proper clarification, always defer it out. That's the best option. The other thing I would say why I feel like we need to wait applying for the forgiveness is there was a similar situation about 20 years ago during the banking crisis. FDIC paid similar amounts, and taxpayers were still allowed complete deduction by court in that particular court ruling. So, right now, IRS is saying reduce your tax deductible expenses by the amount your PPP loan is forgiven. But in that particular court case, what happened is it was more, treated as if capital contribution by the government, which is non-taxable government contribution to the capital. That's what it was like. Not a taxable income. Your taxable income is not increased. Your tax deductible expenses are not decreased, but non-taxable government contribution towards the capital of the business. Now, I'm assuming this very treatment occurred in 1990s banking crisis as well in Centex Corp versus United States court case. So, I mean, this particular situation needs more clarification. Another red flag here. So, but I cannot recommend a specific position at present, but would wait for further clarification from the IRS, from the congressional unit. We need more clarification on this. And I definitely do recommend extending 2020 tax returns, especially if you've already got the PPP forgiveness or you're expecting to get the PPP forgiveness until we receive more clarification or guidance on this. Now, what if you receive the EIDL grant as well as a PPP loan? What to do? So, in that particular case, the EIDL grant shifts the bucket from the EIDL grant to the PPP loan. The EIDL grant, for those of you who don't know, it's the Economic Injury Disaster Grant, where many business owners were eligible to get $1,000 per employee, which you don't have to pay back. Now, when you receive the PPP loan as well, it shifts the bucket. And what will happen? The amount of money you received as a grant, maybe $5,000, $10,000, whichever you received, that amount you have to pay back at 1% interest rate over the course of next 2 or 5 years. Now, when should you apply for the forgiveness? How much time you have to apply for the forgiveness and those kind of things? What form to use? So here's how the whole forgiveness process is going to look like. The borrowers or the business owners have about 10 months from the end of the covered period. So, say for example, you selected 8 weeks or 24-week covered period. At the end of that 8 or 24 week, your 10-month window starts. So, you have 10 months from that particular date to apply for the forgiveness, and your payments will begin. Of course, most of the business owners are kind of getting really anxious to apply for the forgiveness right away. No one wants this debt, and we just want to get it out of our mind, get it out of our books. But please listen to this video and make an informed decision. Now, after you apply for the forgiveness, lender has about 60 days to submit that decision to the SBA. Once a lender has submitted to the SBA, if they agree with with the bank's decision, will remit the forgiven amount to the plus the interest to the lender or your banker, and SBA has about 90 days to review the application and submit, or I would say, remit the funds to the bank. Now, SBA would subtract any EIDL grant money that you have received, and then will submit rest of the money back to the bank. So bank will have that much of loan balance open in their books for you. Of course, banks wants this balance to be written off, because no banks wants 1% interest rate loan outstanding on their books. It's not real business for them, and that's why banks are going to be pushing, apply for the forgiveness, because they want to get rid of it right away. They want to get paid from the SBA. Don't really get anxious to apply for the forgiveness, because one wrong mistake here will ruin the whole forgiveness process. I mean, it is already nightmare for many of you who knows applying for the PPP loan, how messy of a work it was. Applying for the EIDL loan for many of business owners, how messy it was. I still have many people, my practice is helping, where they either made mistake while applying for the EIDL loan or did not submit the proper application. It's been already more than 6 months. They have not received any money. So be very careful. Make sure you review the whole applications thoroughly. And once the SBA, gives banks the money for the amount they are agreeing, lender will come back and notify you. And whatever amount is not forgiven, you have to pay back at 1% interest rate over the course of 2 or 5 years, depending on bank. And your payment will start, I think, within 6 months once the bank notifies you. Now, I would say again and again, make sure to review your PPP loan forgiveness application thoroughly. And do not Again, do not rely on the PPP forgiveness reports generated by any payroll software. Whether you use ADP, Intuit, QuickBooks, Paychecks, Gusto, doesn't matter. I've seen many payroll reports, and majority of the payroll companies or majority of the payroll providers are not calculating it correctly. If you submit the wrong report to the bank, banker will be confused, hence it will delay the whole forgiveness process, or you will not get the whole amount forgiven. So do not rely on those reports. Do your own due diligence. Make sure you go to the professional and get the report reviewed a couple of times before you apply for the forgiveness. Now, what if you have sold the ownership interest of the business or have sold part of the assets in the business? So make sure that your PPP forgiveness has already happened, or you have your loan is fully paid off, or get the approval of the SBA. Reach out to your lender, reach out to your banker, because SBA requirement is completely different, and in most cases, lender or banker have their own requirements as well. So reach out to the lender, and inform them that you are planning to sell your business or you already sold your business, because you have to get the pre-approval. Without the pre-approval, you are in violation of the requirement of the SBA. So now let's cover and dive deeper a little bit. Who should apply for the forgiveness now and who should wait? Well, we are happy to help you sort out through at any level, from advice to completing your PPP loan forgiveness forms. Just email or call our office and we can schedule a time to go over it. Or just in a nutshell, who should apply for the forgiveness? I would say for now, the people who should not wait to file for the forgiveness would be who will have no change in their tax liability, whether or not your loan is forgiven, okay, or whether or not the Congress acts to make the expenses paid with the PPP funds deductible or not. Depending on which direction election is going, we might have the different ruling here as well. So I would say this group includes sole proprietors with no employees, nonprofit entities, and C corporations with operating loss carry forwards. Now, if you are a sole proprietor with no employees and you received a loan and will have the balance partly or completely forgiven, your deduction for expenses will largely be unaffected by the forgiveness. See, here's the thing. The owner draws for sole proprietors are kind of payroll, right? Especially for the sole proprietors. For PPP, they are considered as payroll for the PPP purposes. You don't get any deduction. It is not an expense. It's not a taxable income. And the expense portion of the forgiveness calculation will usually be such a small amount or non-existent that it's not going to impact your PPP loan forgiveness, especially for sole proprietors. Now, the same is true for nonprofits, as you never have a federal tax liability. So entities with operating losses have more technical calculation to be sure that the timing is right. But if it is forgiven, it's not going to affect your tax liability, so nothing to worry about. Now, if you are not in one of these three categories of the business, now again, let me just repeat here. If you're a C corporation with the operating losses, then you can apply for the forgiveness. But if you're not a C corporation, if you're a C corporation for profit, you don't have any operating losses carry forward, wait to apply for the forgiveness. Okay. So if you're not in one of these three categories of business, that should apply now. You should wait. How long? Until Congress acts to make a decision one or the other way, or we know how the deductibility of the PPP forgiveness is going to be considered for the expenses. And if the final decision is made, say for example, okay, you cannot deduct this expenses by the amount that your PPP loan is forgiven, you should still wait for 2021, because then it gives you longer time period, at least, more time than 2 months, which is what is left in 2020, to plan out, what other expenses or what are the things that you can do to reduce your tax liability. I know we have the mess here, and it's getting bigger and bigger day by day. And on top of that, it is wrapped up in politics. But my first advice would be, if you are going to apply for the forgiveness, do it in the next few weeks, knowing the fact that you may have to go back and amend your returns or go through lots of paperwork again, you know. So and these rules are continuing to change. And please do not allow lenders or bankers to pressure you. And if you are qualified for filing Form 3508EZ or 3508S, use it. Don't go for the lengthy form. And do not rely on the any information from your payroll provider. Again, do not rely on it. I've seen lots and lots of errors. Now, at KB Tax Devisers, we plan to work in this order. We are going to make case by case decision as to who should apply for the forgiveness, who should not. Number one, at the same time, we will be assisting our current clients who have engaged us for the PPP forgiveness services first, and then any other current client who has engaged us for any other services like tax planning or any other services, before we give any preference to the outsiders. There is no single approach that will work for all. You need to plan out properly, evaluate the tax impact, especially if you received a bigger PPP loan, as it can increase your tax liability substantially. And you have about 10 months, don't forget, you know. And as always, we are available for questions relating to the forgiveness process. Feel free to email or call us and ask for a meeting to set up. We don't charge anything for the initial consultation. And if it is just a small piece of advice, I would just help you out either way, for those of you who already know me. So let me know if you have any other question, and bye for now.